Today we're going to heat treat 2 knives. Excuse the lawnmower, as soon as I start to make a video, we'll get all kinds of noise starting. The first one is a small EDC knife. This will make a great pocket fixed blade. This is out of 5/32 of an inch thick, 01 tool steel. The handle is just barely long enough to get a whole grip on it. It's maybe, that handle is maybe about 3.5 inches. The blade is probably about 2.25 inches. I would have rather have made these knives out of 1/8 inch thick stock, but I had 2 small pieces, 2 really short pieces of 01 in stock in 5/32 of an inch. It was scrap left over from other projects, making other knives, and I'd like to find a use for them. So I made a small knife. I did it as a full flat to get rid of some of the material, and also drilled out the handle to reduce the weight. So it'll cut like a thinner knife anyway, but still it'll have the strength of having that thick spine. The other knife is modeled after a William Collins design, but this one is a little bit different. I ordered a junior field bore from William Collins, which is probably about 3 months out from arriving. Now, another knife that he makes that I've been really interested in is called the Woodsman's Companion, and he did it as a neck knife or a pocket fixed blade, and it uses 1/8 inch thick scales on each side. I wanted to have 1/4 inch thick scales on each side to make a little bit closer to a full handle, and I wanted to also be able to do the lanyard out the back of the knife rather than a pin, a hollow tube going through the knife. So this is somewhere in the middle of the two. That junior field bore in here on the Scandi section, it was curved. So instead of being straight here, it was, the whole thing was a curve. I didn't want the curve. I wanted the straight section here, and then this hook that comes down, so you have this secondary point right here, which is excellent. That has so many uses. Think of, have you ever carried a pocket knife that's a tanto, and you use that secondary point for all kinds of things? Think of this something like that. It's an extra point that has so many uses. Now, I wanted it a little bit different. The knives that he has are a little bit more of a bushcraft style knife. In other words, they come to a sharper point. This one looks a little more like a Warren Cliff. It rounds down a little bit, less steep than what his do. So this one will have a little bit stouter tip. It still has this upswept, so you can work on the cutting board without your hand being in the way, or without having to have the knife hang over the edge of the table. So again, this is 5/32 of an inch. There wasn't a 16th inch extra stock to spare when I cut this one out. So 5/32 of an inch. Again, I did a full flat. See, his are a little bit different also. He has a secondary grind, like you can see the line here, the plunge grind. He has a secondary plunge grind that's up here, just a little bit in front of this little tooth here. I wanted it to be a full flat. As I'm cutting something, I didn't want to hit another plunge grind and have extra resistance in the cut. So that's why I did this one a little bit different. It is, like I said, thicker stock, so I drilled the handle out pretty good to lighten it up, and I'm taking a lot of meat off the actual blade itself. So both of these are ready for heat treat. I put the oil on, I'm heating the oil up, and now I'm going to put the knives in the kiln and set it to run. Let me clean this out. That black stuff is carbon. You hear sometimes when they say, oh, you may have a burnt edge, maybe the first couple sharpenings don't hold an edge that good. Well, the carbon does come out of the steel on the surface. I'm going to set these both in here. Ceramic pins, make sure the blanks don't fall over. You want everything to stay nice and straight. Okay, so the kiln is running. It's going to heat up. This is going to be a while, and I have my oil down here on the burner that's going to heat up. I'll get back with you when we're ready to do the heat treat. We're almost done. The kiln is up to temperature, and there's about 15 minutes left on the soak time. Now it's looking pretty bad outside. I don't know if you can see. Now it's starting to look pretty bad outside. There's a lot of thunder, and I'm just hoping I get this done because it's starting to look and sound like conditions where you lose power. So it's not too much longer, and I'll be able to quench the blades, and I'll be able to get that on camera. Well, here's that storm. It came up. Got about 5 minutes soak time left. Kind of ironic that the knives, how much time you leave them in a certain heat is called soak time. You see that rain pounding off the car there. Came up quick. I had to pull the garage door down. The rain was just coming in sideways and blowing all the way through to the other side of the garage. It got really crazy. So hopefully I'll have enough light now. The lighting in here isn't that good. I can get this in a position where you can see the kiln and the pot of oil. What I used is these long vice grips. I'll go in there, I'll grab the first blade, take it out, and then bring it down and quench it in the oil. A little bit of agitation that helps speed the cooling up, but you have to be very careful how you do the agitation. The blades are hot, they'll bend very easily. So no side to side movement at all in the oil, just up and down or front to back. And you have to be careful when you're picking the blades up and removing them from the kiln, because you can warp the blade. Okay, it looks like we have a nice straight blade. Okay, I set that one down. I'm ready to grab the second one. Nice straight blade. Give you a look at this one. And we can shut the kiln off. Now I have to wait a few hours for the kiln to cool down. It would be ideal if I had a second kiln, and once these blades cool down to room temperature, I could put them immediately into the second kiln and run the first tempering cycle. But you know, these things are expensive. When I bought this one years ago, they were around $1,000. Now they're closer to $2,000. So to get a second one is kind of a little bit much right now. I'm just a hobbyist. If I was doing this for a living, I would have multiple kilns, and then the second kiln would also act as a backup. So if one went down for some reason, I've had this one since I started knife making as a hobby. So this one is about it's about 8 years old now. That's about how long I've been making knives. A quick look at the knives after they've been hardened. You can see the discoloration from being heated up and then quenched in oil. Turned out quite nice. File test. File skates right across the surface, doesn't cut in. So these are quite hard. They've reached full hardness. Here's the small one. I mean, both blades are pretty small. They're both EDC type knives. This one is a 3 3/4 inch handle, 3 1/2 inch blade. From the start of the cutting edge to the tip, 3 1/2 inch cutting edge, 3 3/4 inch handle. That puts it about 7 3/8 overall. So that'll make a nice little EDC knife / utility knife. Be able to get down and do utility cuts, stripping wire in this part, going around, cutting the jacket, stripping the wire off, and then stripping the insulation off the individual strands. This is going to be great for that. It's for other uses, not just bushcraft. I mean, yes, this portion here will be a Scandi, but that'll be very useful for my everyday tasks. And then it'll be right at home, as if I decide to take a walk in the woods at lunchtime. Sometimes I'll make a fire and I'll cook lunch. So this will be right at home for whatever I'm doing. And on camping trips, this will make a great just general purpose belt knife to have on you. It'll do most tasks that you need done around camp. No, it's not a firewood processing knife. And if you're going to process firewood, I either bring an axe. A lot of times, especially in the summer, an axe is too heavy and I want to pack lighter. I'll just bring a thick knife. I made a thick knife. It's 1/4 inch thick, A2 tool steel, and it's got about a 7 inch blade, and it doesn't weigh that much, and I can pack that along, and that's what I use it for. Any knife that you baton, you're going to have to be prepared for that knife to fail. One of these days it's going to fail. It could be tomorrow, it could be 10 years from now, but one of these days it's going to have an issue. It's going to fail. A knife is only going to take so much beating before it finally has enough and finally breaks. Now that said, your main belt knife that you're going to do most of your tasks with, you should not beat on. Bring a proper tool. An axe is best, but I do understand, and I'll do the same thing. I'll have a specific knife for batoning, and that's usually for crafts. I find it kind of rare that you actually need to split wood for a fire. I mean, it would have to have been raining every day for a month for everything to be that wet that you have to baton. Because normally you can just start carving into a piece of wood as you're making feathers. You can just start carving into a piece of wood, and you're going to hit dry stuff. Maybe just knock off the outer ones that you carved, and then go. So you are going to hit dry stuff. And you don't have to baton for that. 9 times out of 10, I can just pick up what I need off the ground, break it up with my hands, and I have a fire started. It's usually that simple. And this knife is more than enough to make some little feathers or to scrape some fat wood, get some shavings off of some fat wood and some little powder. You know, you can use a sharp spine for that. It'll ignite easily with the ferro rod. So you bring a few things with you, and normally you can just find what you need. But anyway, that's another subject. Let's get back on this knife. So this is similar but different than William Collins' offerings. I wanted a knife that was going to be similar to his Woodsman companion knife, but I wanted a little bit more of a Warren Cliff style tip on the knife. That's for my utility use, for my daily tasks. Stuff that I do every day in my life. So I can carry this fixed blade as an alternative to a folder, and I can get all the chores done that I have to do during the day. So this is going to be an ideal pocket fixed blade for me. I'm going to put, like I said, thicker scales on it. It's going to get a pin here, another pin here, and then this hole, I made it very close to the back. That's going to be for the hidden lanyard. And it'll be my option whether I want to put one on there or not. This knife, I probably most of the time won't have one on it. But if I'm going out someplace or if I'm going to be over water, I am going to put a lanyard on it and I am going to tie it off, and it's nice to have that option. And I don't like knives where you have a hole through the scales and that's how the lanyard is attached. It's always in the way. It always bothered me. When the lanyard comes out the back, it's out of the way. You can use the knife for any normal tasks that you have to do, and you don't even know it's there. Now this thing you can store programs. So let me take a look. Okay, program number 1 is my 350 temper. So I'm going to hit recall. Program number 1, hit enter. And let's view it. Program 1, ramp, fast, up to 350, hold for 2 hours. So now we can run the program. I don't know if you can read that, but we reached our target temperature, 349, 350, and the buzzer's already gone off because it gives me a buzzer when it gets up to temperature. Okay, there you heard that click. So it re-engaged the heating elements, and it's going to keep it within a couple of degrees of 350. Now, while that's going, let me just give you a quick look at this. A while ago, Big J and I exchanged some knives to use and to do a review on. And he sent me his gunny. Now, I made one of these because I did like the knife. So I ground out my own. This is also out of 3V, which I believe is what his was out of. I did a little different. I put a full flat on there and a convex on the bottom. That'll make the knife thinner than what bark rivers traditionally are. See, that's the problem with a lot of knives. They make them really thick and really thick behind the edge because they're afraid you're going to break their knife, you're going to use a warranty. But on the downside, the knife doesn't cut like a knife should cut. So I made my own version of it, and this is now ready for heat treat. So I'm going to have to wrap this in foil and seal it up and make it airtight and run a heat treat program on it. And then I might just send this to Big J and let him compare this against his Bark River gunny. All right, I'm going to leave this run, and I'm going to come back and we'll see you in the morning to run it for its second tempering cycle.